The tool I'm going to be sharing with you today truly is an efficiency unlock. Over the last couple of months, I've been using it to accelerate the way in which I write my reports, my email drafts, organize my markbook, and there are so many other use cases that you're going to discover. So let's dive into Superwhisper. Now, I don't know about you, but I'm a two-finger and two-thumb typist. I got into using transcription tools such as Dragon Naturally Speaking back in the noughties, and that definitely helped. But I still found that the transcription wasn't particularly efficient. And then last year, I discovered Audiopen, which is excellent and does a good job of cutting out all the ums and ers, the filler words that we tend to find ourselves using. And it was a pretty faithful transcription, but it did do a lot of rewriting and it didn't necessarily capture my tone of voice. And then a month or so ago, I discovered Superwhisper. Now, this is a tool that at the time was only available for Apple products, but it's now, I'm pleased to say, also on Windows applications in beta. And that's why I'm making the recording now, so that whichever platform you work on, you can give Superwhisper a go. I tend to use Superwhisper predominantly on my MacBook, but there is an iOS app as well, and I'll often find myself using that during the day if I don't have my desktop available. The best way to appreciate the real potential of Superwhisper is just to dive in and take a use case. So I'm going to be, in this first instance, imagining that I've got a long form Macbeth draft coursework essay in front of me, and I'm working my way chronologically through the essay and looking at the notes that I've made. But I want to compile that and order it in a way that's most useful for my pupil. So in a moment, I'm going to hit record through the hotkeys to get the Superwhisper app running. In the background, my active window is here. I've got my notes open, and Superwhisper will copy to the clipboard of whichever active window you have open at the time. So I'm going to open it, and then you'll notice I'm going to select the pupil feedback mode, and then I'm just going to start talking as if the pupil were in the room with me. Sarah, I really like the way in which in your opening paragraph you establish the thesis of the essay. I think that it's confidently expressed, and I like the way in which you make reference to how witchcraft meant something very different to the Jacobean audience than it does to a modern audience. I would point out that you are not using inverted commas in your essay to identify the difference between Macbeth the man and Macbeth the play. So I want you to go through the whole essay and make sure that you are using inverted commas, please. The first half of the essay has some excellent references to context, which is important for assessment objective 4, but I noticed that that then falls away in the second half of the essay. So I want you to include more context, at least one piece of context per paragraph in the second half of the essay. You make reference in paragraph 2 to Elizabeth being on the throne at the time. Of course, it was James I. I think that's just a typo on your part, so please correct that. Finally, I think we need some clearer examples of the ways in which language helps to reinforce the supernatural themes of the play. So I want you to look at the scene, the cauldron scene, and I want you to analyze the language of Hecate and how this might not be Shakespeare, but might be Thomas Middleton, and it's been inserted after Shakespeare's death. Okay, so that was a fairly ropey bit of feedback there, and it wasn't particularly well organized. But what you can see now is I've hit the hotkey again, and Superwhisper is now transcribing everything that I've said, but it's also then going to here give feedback in two distinct sections: what went well and even better if. And if we read this through, we'll see how faithful it was to the feedback I was giving. The opening paragraph effectively establishes the essay's thesis with confidence. The essay demonstrates a clear understanding of the difference in meaning of witchcraft from a Jacobean audience compared to a modern one. The first half of the essay includes excellent references to historical and cultural context, supporting assessment objective 4. So that's perfect. And then we've got our even better if section, use inverted commas consistently, strengthen the second half with contextual references, correct the reference to Elizabeth, should be James, include clearer and more specific examples of language, and it even references the cauldron scene and the role of Hecate. It accurately grasps the essence of what I said with granular details where needed, but it's taken that chronological feedback and ordered it for me into 2 sections. And the reason why Superwhisper can do this is because of the prompt that's operating in the background for each of these modes. Just to finish out this use case, if I open up my notes page here and I just paste now, I can transfer all of that information directly here, and then I can use it as I see fit. So this is the basic premise of Superwhisper. It's a transcription tool, but along with the raw transcription of what I say, the app carries a custom instruction that piggybacks along with the transcribed file. It's taken to a large language model, which then works with the information and the prompt and then delivers an output which is more useful to us. So here we are on the Superwhisper interface, and it can look a little intimidating at first, but it's pretty straightforward. And it's this mode section on the left here where a lot of the magic takes place. So some of the modes like default and message and email will come with the app, and they're great. So with an email mode, it will know that your honorific begins on the first line, that it will simplify what you're saying, and actually you can customize it by giving it examples of your tone, your sign off. But then it's when you start creating custom modes that it really comes into its own as a piece of software for educators. So I just demonstrated there the pupil feedback mode, which as you can see is currently active. And then you'll notice underneath it, we have 2 little sections. So we've got Ultra V Turbo, and then we've got GPT 4.1. And the reason for that is if I open the configuration for that mode, so it's a custom mode, the model that I'm using to take my information and work with it and adjust it, in this case is GPT-4, one of the OpenAI models, but you've got a whole bunch of different options here, including Claude, Llama, and you can select the one that you want to use. And that will be, it might be that some tools like Claude is excellent at long form writing, for example, but I haven't found a great deal of difference between one model or the other. And then we've also got the voice model down here as well, and that's the model that's being used to transcribe in the first place. So one model transcribes what you've said, and the other model is then going to work for the output. So in this case, I'm using the Ultra V Turbo, but there are multiple models available to you. So if I go up here to the AI models, you'll see here they all are. So this has just been released a couple of days ago, the Ultra model, which is 10 out of 10 for speed and 10 out of 10 for intelligence, and it's a cloud-based app. But there are a whole bunch of others. There's one specialized for medical, for example. And then as we go down, you'll also notice that some of these are available for download. So these are models that don't require an internet connection. They sit on your hard drive, so you can transcribe and then work with that data later when you've got an internet connection if you want to upload it to a large language model. So as a general rule, I tend to work with the Ultra, or before that, I think it was just the Pro version. It will default to what it thinks is the best tool for you. If we go back into modes again, and I go into my pupil feedback mode again to configure it. So that hopefully makes a bit more sense about what we mean by the model and what we mean by the voice model, the difference between the two. And then you can, if you wish, include recording from your system audio, etc. But it's here where it says change the prompt that I want to draw your attention. So if I click in there, you'll notice that this is my prompt at the top here. You are an AI feedback synthesizer designed to reorganize an educator's stream of consciousness reflections into structured, actionable feedback for students. As the user verbally or textually shares mixed thoughts, includes praise, strengths of areas for growth and suggestions, you will carefully analyze and categorize each statement. Your output is always divided into two clear sections. So I've said what their role is and what the goal is, and now I'm going to say this is what I want the output to look like. So I want a what went well section with bullet pointed positive feedback, highlighting successes, strengths, and achievements that are found in the user's reflections. And then I want an even better if, bullet pointed constructive suggestions and actionable steps for improvement, drawn from the user's remarks about challenges or areas needing enhancement. And then just to reinforce that, I've put this final part of the prompt: ignore the chronological order or phrasing of the original input. Instead, focus solely on the content and the intent. Reorganize the ideas as needed, rewriting or formatting them for clarity and professionalism suitable for student feedback. Do not include any advice or reflections outside the scope of the two defined categories. And then I've said, yes, I want it to be application context specific. And then you'll notice down the bottom here, we have an add example section. This means that you can refine your prompt even more by using what we would call a one-shot prompt or a few-shot prompt, where we give it examples of the input and the desired output. And if I come out of my pupil feedback and into a different mode that I've created, so let's take here my Markbook organization prompt, which is something I came up with last week and I've been having a lot of fun with. If we go into the prompt here, you'll see the user will provide a series of names and numbers. These represent students in a class and their individual performance in a marked piece of work. The names will be provided in no particular order, because when I'm marking a pile of essays, I'm just going to take them as they come. They might come in different waves. Take the raw transcription and reorder the information into two lists. List A will order the students alphabetically with their mark to the right of their name. And list B will order the students according to their ranked performance from highest to lowest mark awarded. A really simple prompt here. I've added an example. Here was an input where I got random names. I've gone with first names in this case and marks assigned. And then this is what I would like the output to look like. And in fact, if we demonstrate that one, you can now see how this works. So I'm going to just shut that down. I'm going to hotkey and then I'll stop talking, because otherwise it will think that what I'm saying is part of the transcription. But you'll see me then activate this new mode, and then I'll create an imaginary list of pupils and we'll see it work in real time. So here we go. Steve, 25, Martin, 36, John, 12, Sarah, 30, Billy, 25, Darcy, 24. It's hard to think of names when you're under pressure. So here we go. It's processing. And there you can see the output. So we've got our first list that's alphabetized and our second list, which is rank ordered. This saves me quite a lot of time, and I can just cut and paste this into my Markbook if it's digital, or print it out if I want a hard copy. So this is a second example of how we can use Superwhisper. Now, Superwhisper is the brainchild of Neil Chudley, who's a Canadian entrepreneur and tech innovator, and he created it because he was frustrated by Siri and the user interface with Siri and how he felt it wasn't really fit for purpose. And so this was a side project for him, but seems to be doing very well. Let's look at one more use case, in this case report writing. So this is another custom mode that I've created. I'm using, in this case, the model is 3.7 Sonnet, because I really like the way Claude produces long form writing. My requirements for report writing are quite specific. So if I look in the prompt here, you are an AI report writer. You help organize educators' stream of consciousness reflections into structured, concise, and precise student reports. As the user verbally or textually shares their comments, include, and then these are the criteria that I like to include in my reports: attitude and performance in lessons, homework and assessments, You carefully analyze and summarize each statement as a faithful reflection of the comments given. And here's a specific detail for the kind of output I'm looking for. Your output is always concise, providing an accurate summary of the comments in under 500 characters. And that's because the interface that I work with has a 500 character limit, and often frustratingly I'll write a report that I'm really pleased with, submit it, and then I need to edit it down to fit it into the word count. So this ensures that I'm going to be within the word limit. Maintain the user's tone, vocabulary and turn of phrase where possible, but ignore any filler words like and so it will automatically remove those. And here you can see that I've got an example of one that I've written. So this was my stream of consciousness on James, and here's how that's then been reduced down. And feel free to pause the screen if you want to read this, but we're about to do one in real time anyway. So this time I'm going to hit the hotkey, start the recording, but I'm going to try and be particularly awkward in my phrasing. I'm not having a great day. I'm going to have some false starts and plenty of ums and ers. I may even make my comments out of order, and we'll see how Superbetter handles the challenge. Billy has enjoyed a good half term's work, and I've been pleased to see the progress Billy's worked well this half term, and I've been pleased with the progress he's made. In class, he can still be a little distracted, and I've had to move him to ensure he stays focused. I hope this improves after he's had the summer break. I've been pleased to see that he has been involved in class discussion, and I really enjoyed his contribution to our conversations about Macbeth's. I really enjoyed his contribution to our discussion about Macbeth's courage in the face of his own death. Homework has been handed in consistently, but can sometimes be rushed. I would encourage him to proofread his work more carefully. I'd also like to thank him for assisting Martin, a classmate who's been on crutches this term. He's shown empathy and consideration in assisting him carrying his books. Okay, so you can see that was all over the place, and I'm usually more eloquent than that, I assure you. But let's see what Superwhisper does with this. So it's processing. Remember, it's processing the raw information. It's taking that prompt, it's sending it to Sonnet, and then attempting to take my raw words and turning it into a 500 character report. And here we have, Billy has worked well this term, showing pleasing progress. While he can be distracted in class, requiring occasional seating changes, his contributions to discussion have been valuable, particularly regarding Macbeth's courage facing death. His work is submitted consistently, but sometimes appears rushed. More careful proofreading would benefit him. I've appreciated Billy's empathy and consideration in helping Martin, who's been on crutches, by carrying his books. I hope his focus improves after the summer break. So I think really that's the proof of the pudding, isn't it? It's taken a rambling transcription full of false starts and turned it into a coherent piece of script that within my word count. And of course, I can go in there and tweak and play around with it. But the key thing is, because the examples that I've entered into the prompt are my writing, my style, my voice, it's not something which sounds like a generic AI generated piece of text. It's me. And that's why I think that this is such a useful piece of software and something that I am now integrating into my daily practice. So the all-important question, of course, is how much does this cost? Well, there is a free trial where you get I think it's 15 minutes of transcription to try it out for yourself. I decided to pay for an annual subscription. So it was, I think, around about $85 for a year. But I'm kicking myself a bit now because one of the options was a lifetime's access for $250. And now that I've spent some time working with it and see how useful it is, I would definitely have gone in that direction. So if you have the capacity and the budget to afford it, I would recommend taking the lifetime subscription whilst it's available, because I have no doubt that this is going to get more expensive as more people learn about it and see how good it is. I would imagine that if I had a part-time admin assistant and were paying the minimum wage, I would have already exceeded the money that I've spent on Superwhisper just this term. I'm curious to hear what other ways in which you think Superwhisper can be used in your working practices to reduce your day-to-day admin load and give you back some of that time that you can be using to improve the quality of your resources or just have a life-work balance. I probably should have mentioned this at the beginning, but just in case you're in any doubt, this is not sponsored in any way. This is an unsolicited recommendation based on somebody that just stumbled upon this tool and wish I'd known about it sooner. So I hope you found some value here. Thanks for watching, and until next time.